Hi, my name is Kenneth Pullman, and today you're about to find out about a diabetes breakthrough that I almost ended up in jail for discovering. You'll realize the shocking reason why everything you know about managing diabetes is dead wrong, based on breakthrough new research conducted by myself and a small team of medical researchers, and that the $245 billion diabetes industry is fighting tooth and nail to keep hidden from you. You're about to see how a completely natural method, something that has already been medically proven to work in more than a dozen clinical trials, used successfully by 41,493 people and counting, that actually has nothing to do with insulin production whatsoever, can completely and permanently reverse both type 1 and type 2 diabetes in as little as a few weeks from today. Even if your blood sugar levels are off the charts, or you've had the disease for decades, and whether you're 9 years old or 90 years old, this breakthrough of the century can eliminate the need for painful, scary insulin shots, side effect-filled oral medications, and the severe dietary restrictions that have turned eating food into a lifelong chore instead of something you enjoy. Incredibly, all it takes is a few simple things you can do right now from your home, things that cost nothing. Stay with me till the end of this video, because I'll show you exactly what to do, and you can finally consume more of the delicious foods and drinks you're currently being told you have to avoid without consequences, and go from diabetic or pre-diabetic to 100% diabetes-free in less than a few weeks from right now. Now, I'm going to show you exactly how to use the method I'm talking about right inside this brief presentation, and I'll also give you the medical research that explains the reason this works. But before I do, let me go ahead and address the elephant in the room, because you're probably wondering how any of this is possible, right? After all, you've probably always thought of your diabetes as a life sentence, something you can manage but never fully eliminate. You've probably always felt like the daily needles or the nausea-inducing medications or the dictatorial diets were essential. You may have even accepted that, as terrifying as it is, you're statistically likely to die 10 years earlier than a person who doesn't have diabetes, leaving your children or grandchildren to fend for themselves, and to look out into the audience at their high school or college graduation and see the empty chair where you should have been. So if you're feeling skeptical or confused by what I'm saying right now, I completely understand. In fact, so were a lot of the 41,493 people who have already used the method I'm about to share with you, until they tried it for themselves. Devin from Twin Falls, Idaho writes, "Hearing that I could completely eliminate my diabetes in less than a couple of weeks flew in the face of everything I'd been told. I've been a diabetic for more than 8 years now, and the doctors have always said that this was a life sentence, something I could manage but never destroy. I can't believe the results. Within the first 2 weeks, my blood sugar reading had gone from an average of 330 to 120, and I was actually eating more carbs, starches, and finally enjoying my food. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. I think every single American suffering from type 2 diabetes needs to know about this." And Eric from Kansas City, Missouri says, "I've been diabetes-free for 3 months now, and it's all thanks to you. I still can't get over how simple following the plan you shared in your presentation was. The plan you shared was life-changing. I followed your protocol for 19 days, and my blood glucose levels haven't been over 130 in months. I have my life back, and it's all because of you." And Jason R. of Stillwater, Oklahoma, who says, "After watching your presentation and seeing the science you presented, I was mad mad. I couldn't believe I'd been lied to for so many years, when the secret to curing my diabetes had been sitting in front of me. But I will say this, the anger turned to pure joy as I started doing what you shared with me, and received the incredible news from my absolutely shocked doctor that there was no longer a single sign of my diabetes in my body. Who could be angry about that?" Now, given the extremeness of what I'm telling you, I'm sure you're going to want to know who I am and how I know all of this. Like I said, my name is Kenneth Pullman. I'm an independent scientific researcher and frequently paid consultant to some of the nation's most prestigious academic institutions. In particular, for the last 20 years, I've spent every single moment of my professional career researching one single disease: diabetes. You see, for me, it's personal. In 1982, when I was 10 years old, I watched as surgeons cut through my father's lower leg, cleaving through the skin, the tissue, the muscle, and finally the bone. I wasn't supposed to see any of it, but my mother couldn't control me as I burst into the operating room and saw the man who was my childhood role model with tubes coming out of his skin and his foot dangling limply below the ankle. My father had been a type 2 diabetic since he was a child, and he had ignored the swelling and numbness in his foot for years, when he should have been taking care of it. And because of that decision, it eventually got to the point where everything below his ankle was nothing but useless, rotting flesh, which is why they took the saw to him. Now, you may be thinking this is extreme, and in many senses it was. But even today, in 2014, diabetes remains the number one cause of amputation both in the United States and around the world. And when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 1985 at the age of 13, the only thing I could think of was the stump where my father's leg had once been, and how I would do everything in my power to not end up like him. So from 7th grade on, my entire life became an obsession over finding a cure for diabetes. I received my undergraduate degree from one of California's top colleges, where I studied biology and graduated with magna cum laude, an award reserved for top students. In graduate school, I studied human disease and graduated in the top 10% of my class. And even on my weekends, when I should have been relaxing, I spent every waking hour researching the causes and potential cures of a devastating disease that affects more than 29 million type 2 diabetics and 79 million pre-diabetics in the United States. To anyone looking in on the outside, it would seem like my hard work was paying off. I was published left and right. I was nominated for all sorts of awards and grants for my contributions in the field of human pathology. I got offered a position as a tenured professor at the age of 35, which is unheard of. But even though I appeared to be successful on the outside, inside, I was becoming incredibly frustrated. You see, what I began noticing was that all of the university research money out there, along with all of the academic studies, and even all of the papers that were getting published, were about finding ways to help diabetics manage their disease. At first, that might not sound like an issue. After all, that's what diabetes medication is for, right? Well, the answer is yes, and that's exactly what the problem was. You see, what I realized is that the entire medical profession, both from an academic and a corporate standpoint, was pumping billions of dollars into ways to keep diabetics like you and me on life support. Because that's exactly what managing your diabetes is. It's constantly monitoring your blood sugar levels, taking the oral medications or insulin shots, and following an incredibly restrictive diet that turns you into a lettuce-eating rabbit, with the ultimate goal of helping you survive another day. And the question that was keeping me up at night, and that I couldn't get out of my mind no matter how hard I tried, was this: why are we only focusing on managing diabetes instead of trying to find a cure? Something that allowed you to not just survive, but thrive, and that would permanently reduce your blood sugar back to normal, healthy levels without the use of medications or ridiculously harsh diets. So I began digging deeper. I spoke with my academic colleagues. I started investigating the experimental diabetes medications that the pharmaceutical industry giants were currently working on. I began asking questions I wasn't supposed to ask. And when I finally put it all together and realized what had been in front of me all along throughout my entire academic career and all my research and all of my life's work, I felt like an idiot for not having realized it sooner. The pharmaceutical companies pump tens of billions of dollars a year into making sure your type 2 diabetes is never cured. They have absolutely zero interest in getting you off medications or insulin shots, and this is true even if you're not currently one of their customers and you're just following a strict eating plan right now, because they know that eventually diabetes always wins. And whether it's tomorrow or 10 years from now, your body will begin breaking down, and you'll come crawling over to them with open palms while they give you needles to push into your stomach or pills to stuff down your throat. Think about it. The average diabetic is worth more than $14,000 per year to the pharmaceutical companies. Diabetes medication is a $245 billion per year industry. That's billion with a B, $250 billion. And you can be damn sure that they would sooner have you die than give up that kind of money. It made my blood boil. I'd been so blind. And it made me sick to think that I was partly responsible for their disgusting business practices. Because I realized that Big Pharma controls everything that's being done in the field of diabetes research. That the major pharmaceuticals are actually the top contributors to academic diabetes research, and that because they have the cash, they're the ones making the rules. Which meant making sure that us little workarounds with our fancy titles and prestigious medical degrees and hundreds of millions of dollars in research funding never realized that all we were doing was spending our lives helping the corporations make massive profits, instead of helping real, everyday people like you and me get better. That's why in October of 2011, I did something radical. Something that probably could have gotten me thrown behind bars, but that absolutely had to be done. I laid down the law to a small scientific research team I was being paid to consult with, doing a research sponsored by funds from the Big Pharma, and I told them that instead of performing more meaningless research that would do nothing but make the pharmaceutical giants several $billion in extra profits, they could change the world by putting every single ounce of energy into finding a cure. At first, they thought I was nuts. After all, why should they listen to me? But as I explained to them, I wasn't being hired as a consultant to just sit around and watch them diddle around. I'd been hired to direct the research, and the reason I'd gotten this job was because of my decades of research, my demonstrated expertise in the field, and my widely publicized professional accomplishments. Plus, I also had an ace in the hole. I'd made sure that the agreement I signed with the institution that hired me allowed me to have entire creative control of the project, which meant that even if these scientists were uncomfortable with going against status quo, they really had no choice but to listen to me. It was thrilling, but terrifying. If Big Pharma discovered that we were on a secret mission to destroy them, they would come after us with every single penny they had. But all I could think about was the stump where my father's foot had once been, and how tired I was of having to take insulin shots for my diabetes, and oral medications for my cholesterol and circulation, and of being an over-medicated slave to my disease. So we set to work on a year-long journey, something that would eventually lead to a discovery of the natural and clinically proven method for permanently reversing even the worst cases of type 2 diabetes that I want to tell you about today. You see, historically, all diabetes research and medications have been focused on either stimulating insulin production in the pancreas or breaking down the sugars in your bloodstream. The reason for this is that the majority of the body's insulin is created in the pancreas. That insulin is what causes sugars to leave your bloodstream and be absorbed into your body. As a type 2 diabetic, you struggle with high blood sugar because either your body stopped producing that insulin or the blood sugar in your body has become resistant to the insulin you do produce. So, the consensus in the academic and pharmaceutical world had always been that we needed to either help you produce more insulin or help your body break down blood sugar levels some other way. In a sense, this approach works. People with diabetes now live longer than ever before. It's possible to manage your blood sugar levels with mediocre success, and while those with diabetes used to die 20 years earlier than those without it, they now die only 10 years earlier on average. But on the other hand, this solution is still really no solution at all. Forcing your body to temporarily produce more insulin or to take pills that destroy glucose while also depleting other essential nutrients that are vital to your health, it keeps you on life support, but it doesn't address the cause of your type 2 diabetes at the root. So the question I posed to the research team was this: what's responsible for these high blood sugar levels in the first place? In other words, all of the focus has been on the fact that glucose levels are high and your insulin isn't working, so they stay high. But what everyone seemed to be ignoring was the really obvious fact that it's not insulin that's the problem. It's that you have such high blood sugar levels in the first place. Because what causes diabetes is that your body is producing an excessive amount of sugar in the bloodstream that just floats around in your blood. So, instead of focusing on insulin, like every research lab in the country has been doing for more than 3 decades, I persuaded this team of top scientific researchers to study how glucose, blood sugar, is produced in the body in the first place, in order to determine if this blood sugar production could be slowed down or even stopped. At first, the research was slow, especially since we had to work in secret. But as we continued to extensively study the existing medical research about sugar production in the body, and as we spent millions of dollars performing our own experiments in the lab, we eventually came across an incredible discovery. Something that had the power to change the way people across the world look at what diabetes is and how it can be treated. And that holds the key to reversing all traces of diabetes while naturally bringing your blood sugar levels down to non-diabetic levels within the next few weeks. You see, at the same time we were performing our research, a revolutionary new study was being published with the National Center for Biotechnology Information. And in it, several top scientists made a startling and potentially game-changing claim. They had spent years studying how the human body works, and now had conclusive evidence that 80% of all sugar production in the body occurs in tissues that are not affected by insulin. Instead, this glucose is produced in the kidneys and the liver, and in both cases, this production occurs regardless of what you're eating or what your overall health is. Well, as soon as I read this, I knew that they were onto something. It just made too much sense. After all, think about it. Have you ever noticed how your blood sugar levels are higher in the morning than when you went to sleep the night before? If the answer is yes, have you ever stopped to wonder why this is? Because really, it doesn't make sense. You haven't eaten in 7 to 12 hours, so why would there be more sugar in your bloodstream? Well, the answer is that your liver and kidneys don't go to sleep when you do. Instead, they are constantly pumping out excess glucose on their own, completely independent of what your last meal was. Which is why no matter how much insulin you're stuffing yourself with, or how many pills you take, it's still a constant struggle to manage your blood sugar levels. So the implications of this finding were huge. After all, if 80% of all sugar production in the human body occurs in tissues that are not even affected by insulin, then using insulin to cure your diabetes is like using glasses to cure your poor eyesight. In both cases, the symptoms are masked, but the real cause is never addressed. And what the research team realized is that if we could discover a way to reduce the amount of glucose or blood sugar being produced in that 80% of the body that was insulin independent, specifically in the liver and the kidneys, which produce the lion's share, then we could reduce a person's overall blood sugar dramatically, restoring it to normal levels, and thereby eliminating every single symptom of diabetes in the process. So, like I said, this discovery was huge, but it was only half the battle, because even though we knew what to do, we weren't yet sure about how to do it, which meant it was back to the lab for more research and more tests. For 2 more painstaking months, we studied the tissue and cells that make up the human liver and kidneys. We dissected live samples and ran thousands of tests. We observed which proteins and enzymes seemed to be responsible for triggering sugar production in the liver and kidneys, and which ones seemed to be responsible for stopping it. And what we ultimately discovered was that in the end, there were just a small group of amino acids and enzymes that are exclusively responsible for all of the sugar production in both the liver and your kidneys, which meant that if we could simply neutralize those tiny little biological factories in your body, then excess sugar production would be stopped at the source, before it ever had the chance to be released into your bloodstream in the first place. So all we had to do was find the organic chemicals that, when introduced into the body, would enter the liver and kidneys and interact with those hyperactive glucose producers. And with that knowledge in our minds, we went to work testing thousands of different combinations of enzymes, amino acids, essential fatty acids, and proteins. Until finally, on September 13th, 2011, we received the results from our most recent test, and found that both the liver and kidney tissues we were working with had reduced their sugar production by more than 95%. The feeling of excitement I experienced right then and there is hard to describe. I was shaking. My heart was racing. I was trying not to cry in front of my team members. Every ounce of hope in my body was praying that what we'd found really could be a completely unexpected way to cure diabetes. But I had to be sure, because this one test could have been a fluke. So we immediately tested this recently discovered formula on more than 300 live samples. And as in every single case, the blood sugar production in those samples was cut by at least 80% and usually closer to 90%. Which is when it finally became clear to me that after more than a year of non-stop tireless work, my team had found the key to eliminating high blood sugar and completely reducing all signs of diabetes in the human body. Overwhelmed, I immediately turned myself into a human lab rat so that I could try what we discovered on myself. But even though I was filled with pure joy, so much so that I could hardly sleep all of that week, I wasn't about to start lapping some chemical formula out of a petri dish. So instead, my team and I analyzed the nutritional makeup of hundreds of different fruits and vegetables, as well as the ingredients lists in more than 1,000 over-the-counter supplements, and created a specific eating and supplementation plan that was extremely easy to follow, that only required adding a few fruits and vegetables to my diet, and a few supplements that could be bought from any grocery store for less than $20, but that contained the exact blend of amino acids, enzymes, proteins, and fatty acids that we'd used inside our formula in the lab. We held our breath each day as I followed the careful schedule we laid out. We knew the key was to introduce each food or supplement into my body at specific times, so that they would react the way that was needed in order to regulate sugar production. After the first week, my blood sugar was a little lower, but nothing near what I was hoping for, which made me nervous. But I stuck with it. I kept following the simple guide, and I kept praying that this would work. And on the 8th day, something remarkable happened. My blood sugar levels dropped dramatically, from 270 to 160. The next day, that number was 151. And the next, it was 143. And on it continued to drop, until by day 19, my blood sugar level was sitting at an even 100. It was amazing. I simply never would have dreamed that I could reduce my blood sugar so drastically, and in such a small period of time, simply by carefully adding a few additional foods and supplements into my diet. But there the readings were, right in front of my very eyes. So, I decided to start reducing both my oral medications and my insulin shots to see if it was really just these few small dietary changes that was causing my blood sugar to drop so significantly. And as I started taking lower and lower dosages of the drugs, even after I'd stopped taking my medication and insulin shots for more than a month, even as I started taking my readings every few days instead of 4 times a day, my blood sugar levels stayed right there at an even 100. Emboldened, I began adding more sugars, carbs, and starches to my diet. I figured that since the supplement nutrition blend I was using would destroy all of the excess sugar in my body anyway, that if anything, introducing many of the foods I loved back into my diet cornbread, hot pasta, a refreshing can of Coca-Cola, you name it, would actually probably be a healthy thing for me to do. And sure enough, I was amazed to discover that even though I was suddenly eating all of these no-no foods, my blood sugar level was still staying right there, right at an even 100. Well, you can probably imagine how incredible this feeling of relief was, to wake up each morning and know that you wouldn't have to take a single blood sugar reading, or pop any oral medications that were apparently working, but that make your stomach turn, or to ever look at a dripping insulin needle again and mentally prepare yourself to be stabbed, and to be able to even reduce all of those other pills you were taking, things to lower your cholesterol or blood pressure or for your heart, while saving you $1,000 or more per year in insurance copays. It's overwhelming, it's liberating, and it gives you your life back. The following month, we began running clinical trials, and I was thrilled to see that the results we were getting back reflected exactly what I'd experienced. In fact, even as I collected more and more data and shared the same blood sugar reduction strategy with dozens, then hundreds of other people, folks whose diabetes ranged from mild to severe, and whose ages ranged from 7 to 89, virtually everyone who followed this program saw their blood sugar levels drop to normal levels within 19 days, was able to stop taking their medications, and was able to reintroduce carb and starch-rich foods, things like cheeseburgers, milkshakes, even mashed potatoes, back into their diets. It was the breakthrough of the century, and I knew that it was vital the scientific research team and I do everything in our power to start sharing the program we'd created with as many Americans as humanly possible. But it was easier said than done. We did try to publish our studies, but not a single medical journal would print them. They all looked at the data, at the science behind our discovery, and they told us it was the most incredible thing they'd ever seen, that they had dozens of loved ones they wanted to share it with, but that if they published it, they were dead certain they would never get funding from Big Pharma again, and that they could even be putting their careers in jeopardy. And we knew we couldn't take it to the pharmaceutical themselves, or they'd be so enraged, so terrified, they would do everything in their power, both legally and by less savory means, to make sure our research never saw the light of day. Well, to be sure, it was extremely discouraging. But I wasn't about to give up. I thought about my father, and the shame he felt every time people saw him attach the bulky prosthetic to the stump where his foot had once been. I thought about my own suffering, of the shots, of the constant management, of the feeling that I was never free. And I knew that it was my absolute moral duty to share this program with deserving Americans across this country just like you. So, almost a year ago to the day, I put up this website in absolute secret and made our entire diabetes reversal program available to any single American who had the desire to stand up to Big Pharma, their drug-pushing physicians, and even their profit-hungry partners in the insurance industry. The team and I decided to call the program the Diabetes Protocol, the only scientifically proven way to reverse your diabetes permanently. More than 41,000 diabetic and pre-diabetic patients of all ages and diagnosis, ranging from mild to extremely severe, people who have found this hidden site by way of a well-meaning friend, or the recommendation of a rogue family physician who was willing to take a stand and reject Big Pharma's blood money, have reduced their blood sugar to completely normal levels, while being medically diagnosed as diabetes-free. People like Aaron Golding of Memphis, Tennessee, who writes, I think, like a lot of people, I was pretty skeptical about your presentation. It seemed almost too good to be true and something I should have heard of before. But my situation has been desperate. My blood sugar levels keep getting higher, and the doctors were concerned that even the insulin shots were losing their effectiveness. So I decided to take a chance on this, and I thank God every day that I did. My doctor couldn't believe it when I went in for the next visit, and had both the blood sugar levels and the blood pressure of a healthy 25-year-old. Oh yeah, I'm 68. And Marcus Palma of Smyrna, Georgia, who says, for me, the best part about this program is the freedom. The freedom of no longer having to check my blood sugar levels on a daily or even weekly basis. Freedom from the terror of knowing it was time for another injection. Freedom from looking into my 12-year-old son's eyes and knowing that I might not live to see his college graduation. What you've given me is priceless, and I'll forever be grateful. Or Kelly of Lubbock, Texas, who recently emailed me to say, after my 12-year-old son Michael was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I began researching for any alternative option possible to help him get better. I did find a few programs online, but none of them made even the slightest difference in his health. Then I found your program, and even though I was wary, I was desperate enough to give it a chance. That was 2 years ago. The doctors don't even ask to see Michael anymore except for during routine checkups, because they know that he's 100% healthy and medically diabetes-free. Thank you from both me and my young son. The Diabetes Protocol program is only available from this website that you're on right now, and only for as long as it can remain up without Big Pharma shutting it down. And inside it, you're given the complete protocol to become diabetes-free. It's a specific day-by-day guide. You'll discover exactly what to do over the next few weeks. That's hugely important, because consuming the right nutrients at the right time is essential to getting the right combination of nutrients into your liver and kidneys when it matters the most. And while you do need to follow this guide closely, you'll also be shocked to discover just how simple everything is. And every single sign of your diabetes can be completely eliminated in less than 3 weeks from today. And that's just the first part of what's inside the Diabetes Protocol program. And after 19 days, our program shows you exactly how to start introducing the foods you love back into your diet. Ice cream sundaes, French fries, chocolate chip pancakes, you name it. You'll see exactly what you need to do to ensure you can safely and easily start enjoying the foods you love again. Plus, after that first 19 days, you'll also be shown a medically approved program for beginning to test the waters by reducing the medications and drugs your doctor and Big Pharma have been telling you for years that you must keep pumping into your body. Instead, you'll simply go into maintenance mode. You won't even need to consume the specific foods and supplements we tell you about on a daily basis, or even on a strict schedule anymore. You'll just have to make sure you do keep them in your diet about once a week, and your blood sugar levels will be maintained completely on autopilot, even as you toss those life-controlling medications you hate into the trash forever. The Diabetes Protocol program is about getting your life back, which is why it should be pretty clear that the team and I believe what we've discovered and are presenting to you is one of the most important scientific breakthroughs of the last 100 years. It's completely natural and completely side-effect free, and it's your first and only real chance to permanently destroy your diabetes while returning the freedom you've been denied for months, years, or even decades of your life. Of course, that's not to say you couldn't keep taking other oral medications, things that help fight glucose once it's already in your bloodstream. But besides the sick stomachs, the low energy, the kidney damage, even the side effects like high blood pressure and cholesterol, which require you to take even more medications with more side effects, they don't address the source of your diabetes at the root. And the second you stop taking them, your blood sugar levels will skyrocket right back up to dangerous levels. It's the same thing with insulin shots. There's nothing but a temporary supercharge, but as soon as they wear off, it's time to inject yourself again, to look at that hopefully sterile needle dripping drugs from the end, and to push it inside your flesh. For some people, you could just follow an ultra-restrictive diet. That's certainly not a bad idea, but don't you get tired of hearing no? As in, no, you can't eat that. No, that has too much starch or carbs. No, you can't order that off the menu. Plus, managing your diabetes through diet only lasts so long. Eventually, there will come a point where your body breaks down, where the insulin production is so ineffective or non-existent that you'll be right back on the drugs. Then, there's the fact that all of these ineffective options are extremely costly. Between all of the medications, you're looking at a copay of between $600 and $1,200 per year, or as much as $12,000 over the coming decade. That's money you could be using to take the vacation of your dreams, or put your kids or grandkids through college, or live more comfortably in your retirement. None of those options are real options, and you already know that. So do I, which is why initially my team wanted to set access to the Diabetes Protocol program at $299. That's far less than the cost of seeing even one specialist, for less than what your copay will probably be in the coming few months, and far less than what you'll have to spend to see a dietitian or follow some elaborate meal plan that turns your eating into a major hassle. Plus, that $299 is for a permanent cure, not just a little Band-Aid that has to be ripped off and reapplied every single day. And given all of this, $299 should seem like a steal to you. But, like I mentioned already, getting the Diabetes Protocol program to you is not about me getting rich. If I wanted to do that, I could go take a job with Big Pharma right now and make more than $100,000 per year as a clinical research director. But I don't want their blood money. I want to help you get truly, permanently better. That's what this is all about. I wish this had existed when my father still had his leg. Maybe if it had, it would have saved him from the pain and humiliation that followed him for the rest of his life. Which is why there's no chance I would even consider charging you $299 for this. Or $199. Or even $99. Instead, if you act today through this secret website you now find yourself on, and make a life-changing decision to reverse your diabetes for good, while breaking free from both the medications and lifestyle restrictions that have until now been keeping you in chains, My team and I have agreed to hand over the entire program to you, the complete protocol and the accompanying guides that allow you to get off the drugs and medications in the next few weeks for just $39.95. To get the Diabetes Protocol program now, just click the Add to Cart button that's directly below this presentation. You'll then be taken to the completely secure, triple encrypted checkout pages that my team has set up. And once you complete your checkout, you'll have immediate access to the entire thing through the special members-only section of the website that we've set up. You'll be able to open the protocol, the lists, everything, and view them right on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, or download them, or print out copies and take them with you. So that in less than 4 minutes from right now, it will be 19 days or less until you are entirely, completely diabetes-free. Plus, because it is so vital that I honor my father and help as many Americans as possible to get their hands on the Diabetes Protocol program immediately, your investment today will be covered by my 60-day ironclad, completely reverse your diabetes or 100% money back guarantee. So, all you have to decide today is to try out this program for yourself for a few days. Click the Add to Cart button below, get the protocol and the guides today. And remember, you have 2 full months to try this for yourself. More than 41,000 Americans just like you have already done the exact same thing. But even so, I want to make this decision today as much of a no-brainer as possible. Which means, if at any point during the next 60 days you decide you're not happy with the program, or your blood sugar levels only drop by 40% when you wanted them to drop by 50%, or even if you have no reason at all you have to do is email me at the address I'll provide in the private members area, and I will refund you your entire purchase within 24 hours, no questions asked. Just for trying a medically based program that's already been proven to reverse diabetes for more than 41,000 former diabetics. There's absolutely no excuse not to click the Add to Cart button below and get Diabetes Protocol program for yourself this very moment. But you need to act now. If Big Pharma gets wind of this, and it's only going to be a matter of time until they unleash their lawyers on us and spend millions or even billions of dollars to shut us down. So there's absolutely no time to lose. Get Diabetes Protocol program right now and permanently reverse your diabetes. Take your blood sugar levels back to normal. Begin eating the foods you love, and throw out the expensive, side-effect-saturated medications that rule your life in just 19 days from now. All it takes is clicking the Add to Cart button below, but you have to do it fast. Because this presentation is almost over, and this website may not even be up when you return, so the choice is yours. Either go ahead and close out this window. That's your right, of course, and there won't be any hard feelings on my end. But just remember that later today, or tomorrow, or a week from now, as you're popping another pill you don't want to be taking, or staring at the long end of a needle that's about to be pushed inside of you, or ordering another salad because that's one of the only things you can eat, aren't you going to be thinking of this presentation and wishing you'd made the completely risk-free decision to try for yourself? This is about your entire life. Even with all of today's medicine and science, the average diabetic will die 10 years earlier than someone who's diabetes-free. So wouldn't you take 19 days to add a decade back to your life? It's your decision, but I think you already know what needs to be done. So go ahead and click the Add to Cart button that you see below this video now, and enter your payment details on the checkout page. I can't wait to hear your results. Still here? I understand. The information I just revealed to you is pretty shocking, and flies in the face of pretty much every lie that Big Pharma and even your family doctor has probably told. Obviously, I can't make this decision for you, but what I can do is answer some of the most common questions I get asked so that you have all of the information you need to move forward. 1. So to start, you're probably wondering how it's possible that Diabetes Protocol program can permanently reverse your diabetes, especially when you've been told forever that there isn't a cure. Well, what makes this program different is that it doesn't focus on insulin production whatsoever. It also doesn't focus on reducing sugar once it's already entered into the bloodstream. Instead, you are simply allowing your kidneys and liver to absorb a unique combination of enzymes, amino acids, proteins, and fatty acids that, when introduced into your body at the right time, stops the little glucose production factories that are working around the clock to pump sugar into your bloodstream. In other words, you're stopping the problem at its source, whereas traditional medications and diets are trying to deal with the problem after the fact. Or, to use an analogy, you're essentially taking the bullets out of a loaded gun so that it can't fire in the first place, rather than wearing a bulletproof vest and waiting for the impact. 2. Next, you're probably curious why you've never heard of this before. Well, as I explained during the presentation, Diabetes is a $245 billion per year industry. In fact, each year, your personal diabetes is worth more than $14,000 to the pharmaceuticals on average, and that's $140,000 over the next 10 years. For this reason, they spend literally tens of billions of dollars each year to ensure that academic medicine and private researchers focus only on medications that manage diabetes, not ones that cure it. 3. You might also be unsure of who this program works for. So let me explain. Because the Diabetes Protocol Program stops glucose production at the source, it will work for anyone who has high blood sugar. This includes people with both type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, as well as pre-diabetics. 4. Next, you're probably curious about what happens when you click Add to Cart. Once you hit the Add to Cart button you see below this video, you'll go to our triple encrypted and 100% secure checkout page. You just enter your payment information and that's it. Then, you'll be taken to our private members-only area, where you'll have full access to the 19-day program, the food and supplement list, the daily schedule, the post-program guide for reintroducing the foods you love back into your diet, and instructions for how to heal yourself and giving up on all of the medications you hate. It's that easy, and the materials can all be viewed from your computer, your tablet, or your smartphone. They can also be downloaded and saved, or you can print them out so you have extra copies. 5. I'm guessing another question you're wondering about is, how long does it really take to get results? Well, it varies some, but the average time to be completely diabetes-free was 19 days. Some may take longer, but usually you should start seeing results in less than a week. This program has now been shared with more than 41,000 additional Americans just like you, and we've never had a case where the program didn't deliver those same results to them. 6. Next, let me give you again the terms of that guarantee that I mentioned. Because I want you to feel completely confident in your investment today, I'm providing you with a full 60-day money-back guarantee. Simply click the Add to Cart button below and try Diabetes Protocol Program out for yourself for the next 60 days. If you don't get the results I promise within 19 days, or you're unsatisfied for any other reason, simply send an email to the address I'll give you, and I'll give you a 100% refund, no questions asked. It should be clear that if I thought this wasn't going to work, there's no way I would make such an offer. But I do know that this will work. A total of more than 41,000 people have already proven it. 7. Next to last, you're probably wondering how long this program will be available to the public. Well, I can't say explicitly, but I can tell you that we're seeing more and more visits to this site from Big Pharma, and that history shows us that they're not afraid to spend billions of dollars in legal fees to get something that threatens their very existence shut down. If you think about it, that makes sense. Wouldn't you spend $2 billion in lawyer costs to protect the $245 billion per year you make? So in other words, if you're truly serious about reversing your type 2 diabetes in the next 19 days, you need to take action immediately. 8. And finally, that brings us to the issue of how do you take action and get Diabetes Protocol Program for yourself? This one's easy. Simply click the Add to Cart button below the video and try out the entire program for yourself for 60 days with absolutely no risk. If you're unhappy for any reason, you'll be given a prompt refund, no questions asked. But that being said, I'm supremely confident you won't be asking for a refund because this program has been clinically proven to be effective for all people who are diabetic or pre-diabetic, even if their blood sugar level often flirts with 300 or 400 or higher. So click the Add to Cart button below, fill in your payment details, and submit your order. I can't wait to hear your